When you think of cheese, you might picture a simple, solid block sitting on a plate. But in reality, cheese is a magnificent culinary marvel that in just a few days transforms liquid milk into hundreds of different textures, aromas, and flavors. The history of cheese spans thousands of years, and its creation is a perfect balance of science, bacteria, and patience. To understand how this happens, we need to start at the very beginning, with the basics, so to speak, to fully immerse you in this fascinating process. So without further ado, let's get started. Everyone knows that the basis of any cheese is, of course, milk. And while most cheeses we eat are made from cow's milk, cheese making uses the milk of a wide variety of animals, including goats, sheep, and even buffalo. Each type of milk contributes its own unique fat and protein composition, which ultimately determines the flavor and texture of the cheese. For example, goat's milk often imparts a sharper, even earthier, flavor and a whiter texture, while sheep's milk produces a richer, sweeter body. Before any cheese-making process, the milk must be prepared, and most often it undergoes pasteurization, a process of heating it to a specific temperature to kill harmful bacteria. Although some traditional cheeses are made from raw, unpasteurized milk, pasteurization is the standard for mass production, ensuring your safety. Once the milk is ready, the most important stage begins: adding the starter culture. The starter culture is a special collection of beneficial bacteria that act as flavor architects. These bacteria begin to absorb the milk sugar, called lactose, and convert it into lactic acid. This process not only gives the cheese its characteristic tartness, but also prepares the milk for the next stage. The starter culture is a true secret of every cheesemaker, a kind of fingerprint. And it is the choice of bacteria that determines whether, in a few months, the milk will become a creamy Emmental or a sharp cheddar, process called coagulation. At this point, the liquid milk must turn into a solid curd. To achieve this, the cheesemaker adds a special agent, most often boar rennet. Rennet was originally obtained from the stomachs of young ruminants, but today, both plant and microbial enzymes are widely used. The enzyme acts as a catalyst, causing the milk protein called casein to rapidly coagulate and stick together into a single gelatinous mass. It's as if the milk suddenly decided to separate into two parts. The first part is a solid curd, which will become the future cheese. The second part is a liquid, watery whey, which will later need to be separated. At this point, the cheesemaker has something resembling a dense jelly. This is where the work begins that will determine whether the cheese will be soft or hard. Using special knives or lyres, the cheesemaker begins to cut the curd. If the curd is cut into large pieces, they will retain a lot of moisture, and the cheese will be soft and creamy, like brie or camembert. If the curd is cut into small rice-like grains, a lot of whey will be released, and the cheese will be hard and dry, like Parmesan or cheddar. This step is truly one of the key factors in determining the final texture, and the cheesemaker must exercise extreme precision here to achieve the desired result. Otherwise, the work will be wasted. Now that the cheesemaker has received their curd and cut it into pieces of the desired size, the process that will forever determine the density and shelf life of the cheese begins. Whey removal and pressing. Remember, the smaller the curd pieces, the more whey. That watery liquid will be released, and the firmer our future cheese will become. In soft cheeses, such as ricotta or some fresh cheeses, the whey is removed very easily, often simply by gravity, even without much pressure. However, to create hard cheeses, such as cheddar or Parmesan, the curd must be subjected to serious pressing. At this stage, the cheesemaker places the curd into special molds, which are then placed under pressure for several hours to a day. Pressing not only removes residual moisture, but also forces the individual pieces of curd to stick together into a single, monolithic mass, creating that smooth, dense texture we appreciate in aged, expensive cheeses. Once the cheese is formed, it must, of course, be salted. There's no other way. Salt isn't just a seasoning. It's the second most important preservative after bacteria. salting serves three critical purposes. First, it imparts flavor, making the cheese more piquant. Second, salt draws residual moisture from the surface, which helps strengthen the rind and slow the growth of unwanted microorganisms. And third, salt slows the activity of those very same starter bacteria we added at the beginning. Without salt, the bacteria would work too quickly, and the cheese would simply spoil. However, the salting process itself can be accomplished in different ways. The cheese is either rubbed with dry salt or immersed in a salt bath called brine. It's worth noting that the brine method is more often used for larger, harder cheeses. It's at this stage that the potential rind of our cheese is formed. After salting and molding, the cheese, which until now had been merely a blank, is finally sent to where the real magic happens, to a special aging chamber, or, as it's called in cheese factories, the affinage. This is the final and longest stage. If you think all cheeses are the same, I hasten to disappoint you and suggest you simply take a look at this stage. Each aging chamber is a unique ecosystem with its own strict rules. Cheesemakers must maintain ideal and consistent conditions, temperature and humidity. For example, a soft cheese like Camembert requires high humidity to allow velvety white mold to develop on its surface. Hard Parmesan, on the other hand, requires lower humidity and a much longer period of time, from a year to sometimes even 3 years. During this time, enzymes and bacteria continue their invisible work, breaking down fats and proteins, creating hundreds of new aromatic compounds. So cheese is more than just solidified milk. It's a perfect, delicate balance of pressure, salt, and microscopic life that ultimately gives us a product with an incredible variety of flavors and textures. With this, we have finished, and I hope at this stage everything was clear. So now I suggest looking at the most amazing and magical stage of the entire cheese production, namely maturation and formation of the rind, because it is here that the cheese receives its final character and status. While in cool, humid aging chambers, cheese requires constant care. This is where another key element comes in: the rind. It's worth noting that the rind is more than just an outer shell. It's a special protective barrier, and at the same time, an incubator for microorganisms that continue to develop the cheese's flavor. There are several types of rind, each requiring its own care. For example, white mold cheeses, such as Brie, develop a fluffy, velvety mold on the surface. This mold softens the cheese from the inside out and imparts its mushroomy, earthy flavor. Cheese with a fresh, soft rind, on the other hand, requires constant attention and moisture. Or, for example, consider washed rind cheeses, such as Epoisses or Raclette. Their rinds are regularly rubbed with salt water, and sometimes even with a brine containing alcohol, beer, wine, or brandy. This not only promotes the growth of specific bacteria, but also creates a bright, sticky, orange-red hue on the rind and imparts a sharp, strong, very distinct aroma and a soft, flowing texture inside. And of course, we can't help but mention blue mold, which creates its masterpieces inside cheeses like Roquefort or Gorgonzola. In this case, after molding, mold spores are deliberately introduced into the cheese, which is then pierced with long metal needles. These so-called tunnels allow oxygen to penetrate, activating the growth of blue-green mold. Meanwhile, the mold breaks down fats and proteins, creating the famous sharp, piquant, and slightly spicy flavor and characteristic marbled veins. As a result, thanks to these efforts, cheese is transformed from a product into a complex gastronomic creation. Cheese is more than just food. It's a reflection of the region where it was produced. It's the milk, the bacteria in the air, the water, and the cheesemaker's care that make it unique. It's worth noting that French, Italian, and Swiss cheeses, all of them, while sharing the same basic structure, become completely distinct and inimitable, thanks to these subtle but crucial differences in mold and aging. So, today, we've seen that cheese isn't just a product you consume every day, but a true triumph of human patience and microbiological art. It's a long, complex process that begins with the simplest liquid, milk, and culminates in the creation of an endless variety of textures and flavors. When you choose cheese, you choose something much more than food. You choose the story of how liquid milk is first separated into a solid curd and liquid whey by the magic of rennet. You choose the precision with which this curd is sliced to determine whether it will be a soft, flowing camembert or a hard, crumbly parmesan. You choose the time and patience the cheesemaker invests in each piece, controlling the humidity and temperature in the aging chambers, while invisible bacteria and mold create their final, unique, and truly complex flavor. Cheese is a universal culinary language that has found its place on every continent. It demonstrates how small changes in one of the 4 basic elements, milk, sourdough, rennet, or salt, can lead to a completely new, unique product. So now, the next time you enjoy a slice of cheese, remember all this incredible alchemy that was done for the sake of this one. Perfect taste that you so easily got. And of course, do not forget to enjoy this wonderful product.